Welcome to Make a Path Presents. I'm Ronnie Hayes, and today, let's talk The Walking Dead comic Q&A number 12. Start this off with Shane Walsh. Do you think Andrea will die in the Whisper War? I'm afraid she will, to be honest. Mobin Mazlumian. Aaron could recognize Alpha's severed head. Listen, yeah, you and like 10 other people mentioned this. In the previous Q&A, we talked about Aaron and Eric back in like issue 79 or something like that. Eric got stabbed and then it could be Alpha, a hint of her story previously. A lot of people brought up the fact that Aaron could recognize it and wondering why I didn't mention it in the video. And that's because Aaron's not there. I think a lot of people forget that Aaron was at Alexandria and he left with Michonne. He got stabbed and then Michonne took him to the hilltop because the hilltop, from what I believe, is closer than Alexandria was to where they were at. So Aaron's actually at the hilltop right now. So in order for Aaron to see the head, they would have to put it on display or keep it. And I just don't see them doing that. It would be neat for somebody to wear her head as a Whisperer to attack the Whisperers. That would be vicious. As a sign of like mental warfare to mess with them, you know? Beta would go nuts. That would be a clever way to trap and kill Beta. Beta's so, full of rage. Have somebody with her Whisperer head. Beta would try to rip that head right off her, And they did leave hints in the San Diego Comic-Con. There's no chance they can answer the one question because it was talking about Rick and them using Whisperer skins. So we might see Alpha as a Whisperer. Man, how ironic would that be? The previous leader of the Whisperers is now a Whisperer suit. Oh, man. Oh, that is too good. Moving on. John AXL. Do you think Negan will eventually be killed off, or is he maybe more of a recurring villain like the Joker? I don't think Negan will be the villain anymore unless something changes his mind. At this point, I don't think Negan's going to get killed off anytime soon. I think he will definitely survive the Whisperer War. SSTB. Do you think that Ezekiel and Shiva died too soon in the comic? No. Previously I would have said yes, but the simple fact is, how much story can you really do with a tiger? Nah, she died at the right time. As far as Ezekiel, they made him a little less likable, in my opinion, than I was hoping for. So, yeah, kill him. It's fine. If they made him a little more likable, I would have liked for more story to develop. But the moment he turned into kind of a bitch, I was like, I'm done with him. He looks cool, but I couldn't get over how he was such a bitch. In memory of the memory. Do you think the scar Negan mentioned will come into play soon? Absolutely. I think it's going to come into play, though, in the backstory and not the full story. And I think that's a cool way to kind of connect the two. If it doesn't come into play, then it was just something that I don't even know why it was in there. Spin 2020. Do you think Alpha was killed off too soon? I think there was more potential storyline there. No, but hold on. How everything played out was fine, in my opinion. The only thing I do disagree with, which is kind of similar to what you're saying, is I feel like there's an issue missing where there should have been another issue there, or maybe 2 issues with more Alpha material, and then it would have been perfect. But again, in my opinion, it's like, man, it feels like something's missing. But other than that, I'm fine with where she died because of what it's leading into, Tactical Steven 35. Do you think The Walking Dead will ever end or be at a point where there is no more zombies and Rick and the rest of the world will rebuild society? Yeah, The Walking Dead's going to end one day. However, what you said here just won't happen unless they cure the zombie virus. Every time someone dies, they become a zombie. It's not like they can kill all the walkers and that's it. They can rebuild society, because then if one of them dies, they become a walker. So unless they could cure that, no, they can't rebuild society in that way. They can rebuild society and now live, but, keep an eye out for when people die. Sam Garcia. Is it more likely that Madison could become Magna instead of Alpha? I have a problem with Fear the Walking Dead characters becoming, comic characters, because when Fear the Walking Dead, and I'm going to go back and find this because I know I might have slightly misspoke, or definitely misspoke when it came to Abraham on the TV show about Kirkman regretting Abraham's death. And I know this video was out there. I know it is because I saved it in my old computer for a video to do in the future about Abraham in All Out War. Kirkman wasn't talking about the comic when this came up. It was a behind the scenes, I believe it was season 5, Kirkman was talking about how much he likes Michael Cutlass as Abraham, and he's looking forward to the future storyline, and they were mentioning All Out War, and it was talking about Michael Cutlass as Abraham being in All Out War. It wasn't talking about regretting, comic Abraham and killing him, and then not having comic Abraham in All Out War, and I think that's where burning through some of these, I just got it all mixed up. But when it comes to Fear the Walking Dead characters becoming comic characters, it doesn't fit because, and again, I got to find this material, but they said these are new characters that are not in the comic book. They don't exist in the comic book universe. So if that's true, if they did go back and say those exact words, there's no way in hell they could become Whisperers or Magna or anyone else, because again, they don't exist in that universe. It's two different universes, So I'll go back and find that. But until then, to be continued. But I'm going to stick with no. Fear the Walking Dead characters cannot be comic characters because they're two different universes. Brennan Thornhill. Do you think that in the comics the governor's death was anticlimactic? If you didn't read the books about the backstory and whatever. With the governor's death, I read it in compendium, so it was like page after page. So for me, it was fine. I mean, and this I think is what proves that Kirkman can take advantage of something. Absolutely, it is underwhelming. That's why you'll see a lot of stories sometimes force the writing to have a main character, a main villain fight a main hero. And I thought it was actually refreshing. And again, like Kirkman, he found that. He said that's a weak spot. So what did he do? He turned Lily into a main character. It started out as a flaw and it turned into a genius move. It was great. It was great to do that. And they should continue to make Lily Call some type of hero. Which, again, in my opinion, how twisted does that become? Everyone's talking about, we can't turn Negan into a hero. I don't know why I'm mocking this, but people are talking about, we can't turn Negan into a hero. He killed Glenn. What about Lily Call? She's a hero to people, and she shot a baby. You know what I mean? She shot a mother and her baby and killed them both. And no, Lori did not fall on the baby. They were clearly shot through. It's shown, and they admitted it, or they confirmed it. The gunshot went through both of them. And Lily Call is a hero to some fans because of her story afterwards. Yes, she was manipulated. You can make any excuse you want that she was manipulated and Negan did it and he didn't have to do it. That doesn't matter. She killed a mother and her baby running away, end of story, and she's a hero. So in my eyes, Negan can be a hero. Anyone can be a hero. It's not black and white. There's a lot of gray. What were we talking about? Jared Dean. If Negan is actually turning into an anti-hero, which I would love, could it be possible Negan will become the main character? Would you be happy with that? No, I would not. Listen, when I entered the story, when I first picked up the Walking Dead comic, the first thing I read, which blew my mind and made me so excited, and it seared itself into my brain that I can't even forget it. The first thing I read was Volume 1, Days Gone By, the very first volume that has the first 6 issues, and you read is it the introduction? Yeah, it's the introduction. The idea behind The Walking Dead is to stay with this character, in this case, Rick Grimes, for as long as humanly possible. I want The Walking Dead to be a chronicle of years of Rick's life. We will never wonder what happens to Rick next. We will see it. The Walking Dead will be the zombie movie that never ends. Well, not for a good long time, at least, Robert Kirkman. That idea seared itself into my brain where I was just like, it's too soon. It's just too damn soon to kill Rick Grimes. And to think about it like that, like we're going to follow, this is the zombie story that's never going to end. We're going to follow him. And I know the argument could be made that a lot of time has passed. Yeah, we followed his time. His time is up. Let's kill him and move on to a stronger character who doesn't have a cane, who doesn't have a missing arm, who looks healthier, beefier, who has a lot of fan base. The arguments could be made, absolutely, but why is that the case? Why can't Negan slowly move up in rank, somehow work his way into good graces with Rick, where Rick actually considers him a friend? I think that is way, way more interesting than just simply killing Rick off and following Negan, in my opinion. I think the conflict there, Rick's internal conflict, to know that he now considers this guy a friend who used to be his enemy. He went to war with him, who he beat one of Rick's friends to death. And I know someone will say, well, you know what? that would be forced, or this or that, or Rick will never be friends with this guy. But, surviving together changes things. And if they do the story right, if they wanted to take it in this direction, they could. I just think that's very interesting. And again, in my opinion, I think killing Rick Grimes off before we can see, or before he can see and lead in this world, as in leading a group to Ohio, the new community, or leading a group out to explore, I think that's too soon. And I would hate it. Maybe I wouldn't. I don't know. We'll see. Dadoon. I recently read the comics again from 1 to 154, and on issue 154, page 13, the person on the radio with Eugene mentions a survivor who, you're talking about the survivor found in, or who was in blood all the time. Could be Nick from Fear the Walking Dead, and I know this is popular with a lot of fans out there. I am probably in a minority. I would hate it. I do not want Fear the Walking Dead characters in the Walking Dead comic. I want it to stay out of it and exist only in the Walking Dead universe. Because let me tell you one thing. If the Fear the Walking Dead characters somehow become characters in the comic, now you need to separate it, and it becomes complicated. Because if Fear the Walking Dead characters also cross over with the Walking Dead, which also I do not want. I definitely do not want. If they do cross over, then that means that the Fear the Walking Dead characters exist in the comic, and they also exist in a TV show, but alternate versions of the characters that exist in the comic who they're now talking to also exist in it. See what I'm saying? So if they do become comic characters, they have a different story. What you see on TV might not be their comic story. See what I mean? How it's just like, what? What? No. In my opinion, keep it all separate. I could be wrong, though. What do I know? South, a.k.a. the boss. Do you think Rick or Negan will die in the Whisper War? No. That guy that raps. What role do you think Jesus will play in the upcoming Whisper War? Soldier, Senpai Chara. Do you think Dwight will be a traitor, or will he do something else? I don't know what you mean. I don't see any reason for Dwight to become a traitor. William Neiman. If Rick and company were losing the war, do you think Eugene could radio in for help from this other group? Listen, if this other group is actually in Ohio, I don't think that's possible. If Rick and them are fighting and they need to call for help, I think it's 6 hours driving time to get to Ohio from Alexandria, Virginia? Imagine doing that without vehicles, on foot, with a large enough army to actually help them. I think it's impossible. Unless she's lying. Ravu 420. What do you think will be the fate of the Hilltop during the Whisperer War? I feel like the Hilltop's going to get crushed. I don't know, man. I feel like the Hilltop is going to have something very bad happen to it. I got this feeling. David Bro wants to know, in my opinion, how did these groups never run into each other, but they end up running into Rick Grimes' group? You know what? They did it good with the Whisperers. The Whisperers, it was all interconnected. And the Whisperers, they made it clear that they were in territories that Rick and their groups never went to. So that's fine. The only problem area is how convenient it was that the Saviors never ran into the people at Alexandria. It is a little bit of a stretch. Like, how did you guys not see them? Negan even remarks, you guys were in my backyard, whatever. But then again, if you go out, there's a whole lot of land. You know what I'm saying? If you're doing a whole bunch of different shit and you just don't go, an extra 5 miles this way, you might never run into those people and be that close to them. So I don't think it's a big deal. Listen, there's a lot of fans out there still that I'll get in conversations with, and they actually think that where Comic Rick started from in Kentucky, where they were in Atlanta, Georgia, all right, and then where they traveled to here, to here, to here. A lot of those people think it's the same neighborhood. I still get these conversations with people that are like, how did Negan and the governor not run into each other? And I'm thinking, they're like so far away. They're not in the same neighborhood. So you got to keep in mind, if you look on a real map, a lot of these places are far. In this world, you don't have cars. They're not traveling in and out at high speeds. When you go to travel, you better have a good idea of where you're going or what you need to achieve, because you could be just driving towards your death. In my opinion, it's not that big of a deal or that big of a plot hole. Burrito Bros. How do you think Lydia will react to her mother's death? You know what? Lydia's not around when her mother is emotional about Lydia, so I don't think she should go crazy. I'm a Kevin. Do you think they will do a Here's Alpha? No. Alpha's dead, in my opinion. No, I just don't see it. You know what? If they wanted to do something similar, I would say do it in a different medium, not a comic book. I just don't think it will work. Negan's still alive. The fire for Negan as a character, it's still real hot right now. So it works. For Alpha, I don't think it would work. You could do a one-shot, a one-off. That's fine. One comic, I think fans would buy that. But I'd also want something more. I'd want to know at the end of this, I'm getting a look at maybe it's to showcase like Alpha and how she became a leader. But at the end of it, the reward as a fan would be to follow Lydia. That way it actually backs up her story. And since she's still alive, that's the angle I would go. Not focusing on Alpha, but focusing on Alpha's leadership and through Lydia's eyes. Something like that. SCJ2701. What sort of storylines do you think could happen if this new community on the radio could be connected to tons of other communities and have alliances with tons of people for miles and maybe even overseas in other countries? Listen, I think this radio community at this point is the make or break. At this moment in time, it is a make or break on whether or not The Walking Dead continues to triumph as great storytelling. Because again, even though in a post-apocalyptic world, even though in this world you have people only doing a number of things. They're going on runs, they're fighting, they're protecting their own, they're fighting walkers. But you can't continue to do that like this radio group. Let's say they are an authoritative group that have communities set up. Let's say they want to take over Alexandria and own them and run them. It's just a bigger, more organized Negan. You know what I mean? Instead of having to deal with the Saviors and Negan back a few issues, back in issue 100, now in issue like 165, let's say, instead of dealing with them, they're dealing with a government of people, a group of Negans that have a council that want to control all the communities and regrow our government, but they're going to force people to do it. They're going to force people to unite. So in my opinion, they need to take this opportunity to break away from the Alexandria storyline, the Hilltop storyline, keep those communities, depending on what happens after the war, destroy Hilltop, maybe even destroy Alexandria, do something that shakes the communities up in a big way and makes them send parties out to see what else is out there. They've been sitting back through this time skip and they built their community, everything was fine. Now the whisper of war plows right through this and they're thinking, we can't continue to do this because if we have another war like this, we might not survive. So I think this is the make or break where it sends and it refreshes the story because now we get to see what the world is like. 4 years, there was a 4-year time skip, 3-4 year time skip. So now we're following a group to Ohio. Who do they run into? There's different, and the zombies become a threat again, let's not forget. So you can extend this to issue 200. You can rock that out just traveling. You could make a little story around Alexandria, rebuilding it, check in on them. Rick could even send a messenger. They could build an outpost. Okay, we've made it this far. We need to check these different ways. We're zeroed in on Ohio because there's people there. Send a party out here. Now it's time to start expanding this universe. We could focus 10 issues on something that's going on with the party that was sent out to go to Ohio. You know what I mean? Again, what makes or breaks it with this story, you might run into the same trap where it's the rinse and repeat, where we're going to run into another group, and the other group are either going to be good or bad. If they're good, there's not much story there because there's not much conflict there. They could be good but have something bad that they need to conquer. Okay, there's conflict. Because when you're writing a story, conflict is king. Without conflict, your readers get bored. And that's why they did the time skip. There was no conflict, really. You know what I mean? And without conflict, there's no story. So, sending them off, following that party out to Ohio, yet also maybe keeping one or two or a few. I don't see them getting out of this without at least one community being leveled to the ground. And seeing that Maggie sent most of her soldiers away, I'm afraid it's the Hilltop. Maggie and Carl and them might have to go on a run for their lives. They might be the only ones to make it out alive. If they lose the Hilltop, that's a heavy blow. They could lose the Hilltop, they could lose someone else. And again, this Oceanside, everyone brings this up when we talk about communities. We haven't seen anything of it. As far as we know, the Oceanside is a couple huts by the water. That's it. We haven't seen anything from it. Except for when the boat was docked there. I'm assuming that's what they call Oceanside. I don't want to run in circles here as far as sending a team out traveling and then dealing with stuff here, because I'm trying to stay general. If I get too specific, now we're getting into storylines that we really need to focus on. Like, I can't give you a specific story for what's going to happen next at Alexandria, because I would want to sit back and think, okay, let's do this right. You know what I mean? But as far as staying general, yes, I do believe it's time to see what else is out there. It's time to go back on the road, either keep the communities or knock them down, but follow a group that goes out and explores. I think that is how they're going to refresh, or in my opinion, it would be the best way to refresh the world of The Walking Dead. Go explore what's out there. But that's just my dumb opinion. Put your thoughts and opinions in the comment box. I'm done talking. It's your turn.
Subscribe now.